look down from the balcony upon the scene. If you can imagine that, if you're standing up above watching yourself, imagine yourself watching the discussion. You'd probably be mortified with yourself for a start. If they recorded the discussion you have with your wife, your partner, how embarrassing if it played back. Yes. What a twat you were. Rachel will be going mad if she's listening to this, because she's realised how much difficult a person I am. But, you know, at home and dealing with your staff, go up on the balcony, look at it, understand from the other person's side, walk in their shoes, try and understand their view, then alter your argument to suit. Maybe you'll find a solution. Maybe you don't like the solution, but that's because you're not able to face the reality. You then have to think about the reality, think about the outcome that you actually want.
So I guess no matter how fantastic the John Starrett course was, your learning would have continued apace after you finished that course, when you actually started to apply what you'd learnt into the real world, I guess. Not just with the likes of Lactalis, but as you say, you know, at home, negotiating with your children about something. So I guess it's about the real life stuff where you apply this knowledge that you really start to grow. Would that be fair to say?
I think so, yes. I think that absolutely. Maybe the thing I've done different or feel differently about is I guess I'm a lifelong learner. I didn't do much at school, really. Mum and Dad had a difficult marriage, and education maybe wasn't top of my priority at the time. And I've learned on since then, and education is also, or exam results are no indication of intelligence, really. I do absolutely believe in education and schooling, and my kids, I hope, will be able to put themselves in a position that they have choice, so that they can make the decisions in the future with ease. But yeah, so I desire to continue to learn. So yeah, you do a course and it gives you a buzz, it gives you an intensity to your learning. I've also had a lot of coaching over the years, and I seek out coaching, one-to-one coaching, life coaching, because I'm never good enough at what I do. Every day we move on to another problem and you need more skills. So you just got to keep learning. So I would advocate to anybody, you know, you've got a responsibility to yourself to keep learning, to challenge yourself. Never be a victim. Get on, sort your problems out, take them by the bull by the horns, and keep learning.
I found an article about that you had in the Scotsman, I think, which was to do with the Milk Suppliers Association, and a quote from it is, which maybe you'll have to tell me when I finished, maybe sums up this conversation, and that quote says, "I remain firm in my belief that old school aggressive relationships achieve little. The inequalities in the dairy supply chain need to be addressed by developing trust, solving disputes, and building collaboration." Now, you could probably take out the words dairy supply chain from that sentence. It sums up all relationships, and particularly in a business sense, collaboration, trust are probably two critical words, are they?
Absolutely, yeah, they are. I mean, I still stand by that statement, and it's really difficult to get genuinely good collaboration. Really difficult at times to have respectful dialogue, respectful conversations. The supply chain has got power imbalances, and so until we can start to solve that, and that'll be driven by the consumer actually taking responsibility for their actions. I mean, we could start talking about a whole different subject around the health of our planet, and global warming, and the thing that farmers can do for it. And I have a huge concern that everybody just wants to blame somebody else and not take their own responsibility for what's happening to our planet at the moment, the loss of biodiversity, the greenhouse gas thing. I really think farmers can become the heroes, not the villains of it.
Yes, I agree.
But people need to listen to us. And those farmers that will need to change, many of them, what they do. We need to apply science and history. But ultimately, while we keep cheap food as a driver of our economy, and we won't save the planet. It's absolutely straightforward as that. We've got 60 harvests left. I recommend anybody watch Kiss the Ground. It's a tremendous film on Netflix.
Yes.
And people should really watch that and understand that there are things we can prioritise, and carbon capture being one of them, putting the carbon that we've released as humans back into the ground. Farming can help with that really, really very effectively. But how we produce food going forward cannot be about done at least cost. It cannot be asking farmers to constantly do more for less, because that is the capitalist model, and the capitalist model that we have today running our world is killing our world. And I'm not saying, I'm not some kind of mad left-wing socialist. What I'm saying is we need to step away from shareholder capitalism as a driver of our world economy, and we need to take some consideration of the stakeholder and the planet being one of those stakeholders. And so it's so difficult to deliver trust and collaboration in a supply chain that's driven by constantly asking us to do it for nothing, less than the cost of production. It's just totally unsustainable in the purest form of the word.
And from a consumer perspective then, what do you think needs to change?
We need to ask questions and demand. I don't think food needs to be terribly much more expensive, but there are huge inefficiencies in the supply chain, huge waste, and many of these global companies are just taking money away for shareholders, vast salaries and vast hidden dividends being taken away, because there's a huge problem with tax regimes in UK and States and Western world where it's very, very possible for grey accountancy to make a company pay very little tax.
Yes, yeah. That's what we've regularly seen.
And so the money goes out the top, and the supply chain uses the farmer's land holding to be able to borrow. So they leverage the farmer's capital. The farmer puts himself in more debt and continues. The Dutch in particular call it the race to the bottom. You're in the commodity trap. You invest to be more efficient. The efficiency gets taken away from you, but from the processor and the retailer. And you go again till somebody goes bust. And then the farmer gets bigger, and the farmer gets bigger, and the production becomes more industrialised. Meanwhile, the shareholders are taking their dividends, and the money's going out the top. So the consumer needs to understand this. The consumer needs to ask questions about the integrity of the companies they're working with or buying from. And then they need to really start to genuinely know where their food's coming from, how it's made, and the production system that's using it. We can't feed the world by going back to sort of low output, organic type farming. We need to use
about the noise. What is that noise, Rory?
It's the compressor.
Oh, right.
It runs the dairy going off.
I see.
We really need a mix of science, of organic farming, of conventional farming, to be able to produce food in a way that will not only feed people really well, but also save the planet. Food needs to be seen as medicine. We have huge problems with diabetes, with obesity. We need to face that and not just go to the NHS and get a gastric band.
Yeah.
If we could change the diet habits of people, eating habits of people, diabetes, if you put a cost in diabetes, and I can't remember the figures, but if you could halve the number of people with diabetes in the country because they ate properly, because their doctor knew about food, food is not on the it's not taught in medicine. It's not taught at university.
No, you're right, and I have a GP friend who is furious about that and trying very much to change it. But yeah, you're right. The diet and nutrition is not taught.
And the prescription needs to not be medicine as we know it, pharmaceuticals. It needs to be healthy food and exercise. Then when food starts to be seen as medicine, and you pay a lot of money for medicine, you'll pay a huge amount to pharmaceutical companies. Pharmaceutical companies are some of the richest companies in the world, huge lobbying power. Imagine the stuff that you shove over your throat every single day being the thing you pay the least for. It's absolutely mental. It's upside down. But guess what? Those big global companies taking the shareholding out, lobbying governments to make sure Because if food becomes the cure, then they're not needed to the same extent.
No, exactly. All of the junk gets ditched.
Yeah, the junk food gets ditched. You know what? Plant-based food is really taking off at the moment, and it is being what's the word I'm looking for? It's been funded by these huge. It's been funded by huge multinational global companies, whether they're pharmaceutical, whether they're current food processing companies. Not because it's better for the planet, because there's vast margin in plant-based food. The plant-based milk, if they call it shouldn't be called milk, as Jack Whitehall said, it's not juice. People are drinking nut juice. Nut juice is water and squashed nuts with something horrible put in it to make it taste edible.
This comes back to the consumer again, doesn't it? Which of the consumers actually give thought to the amount of water, for example, that's needed to grow almonds for the almond milk? Forests being chopped down for your palm oil that goes into all of these vegetarian products. It's
staggering. Go to California and drive across the Central Valley and see the almond fields. You can drive for hundreds of miles. They are sucking water out of that water basin that relies on snow melt that someday won't come because of global warming. And you'll understand what almond milk and soya milk actually is. In Scotland, we can make human edible protein and fat, which is milk, from green grass. It grows with water that falls from the sky and grass that humans can't eat. Yet we insist, if we're in fashion, in vogue and saving the planet, we drink soya milk. It's absolutely mental.
So, in bite-sized chunks, this is not an easy question, Rory, so I'm not expecting a simple answer. In bite-sized chunks, what can we do? What can we all do? What can I do? I'm a consumer, I work in PR, you're a farmer, you're on various boards. People listening to this many of them will be rural inhabitants, many of them will be farmers. We've all got to take responsibility, but no single one of us can change the world.
Collectively,
what can
we
do?
First of all, we need to look at our actions, stand back in a balcony and see what will really make an impact. Eating plant-based food will not nearly have the same impact as you changing your transportation habits, as making sure your house is insulated, as not getting on that aeroplane, as cycling to work, as not burdening society with your ill health because you've eaten the wrong food. You can decide to look at the food that you buy and make sure it's local, make sure you're buying ingredients. Don't buy fast food, don't buy processed food. Learn to cook. Learn to cook with ingredients. Somebody will come back and say, we can't afford it, it's so expensive, there's too much poverty. You're a wealthy farmer, Rory. There is nothing cheaper than vegetables. There is nothing cheaper than a potato. So, eat plants, eat potatoes and good green vegetables. Eat a small amount of meat if you can afford it. Eat 80% vegetable, 20% meat. Eat a balanced diet, one that we maybe ate 50 years ago, not today. Everybody eats fillet steak now on a Saturday night. It used to be eaten. Well, many do, certainly in the farming circles.
Yes,
I like eat it once
occasionally.
People used to eat fillet steak. It was too expensive. You eat it at Christmas time.
Yeah.
But, if you're going to eat it, know where you've bought it. Know that the farmer's done his job right. And make sure, for goodness sake, it's Scottish first, British after that.
Yeah, totally agree. Now, we're not here to lecture other farmers, far from it. But what needs to be done within the wider Scottish agricultural industry then to try and address this?
Well, that's a big question, I guess, isn't it?
It is.
Then, first of all, got to stop thinking that somebody's going to provide us with an income. I suppose if I'm being controversial, we've feather-bedded. Feather-bedded is the wrong word. We're used to having subsidy as part of our income. Farmers are very, very adaptable. Incredibly tough bunch who can survive challenge after challenge. They become very good very quickly at reading the signals and adjusting their behaviour accordingly. So when subsidy came along, that's exactly what they did. They said, this is the best way to make money for my family, because ultimately that's what they are. They are family people looking after their family. This is the best way to make money for my family, so that is what I will do. The signals are going to change, are changing, and have been for a while now.